When Mayor Menino took office, Boston's Seaport District was a desolate expanse of parking lots and abandoned warehouses. Today, in the final months of his 20-year tenure, the area is almost unrecognizable. And if Menino's vision is realized, it could one day soon be home to the likes of Google and Apple.
I'd never heard of the Seaport before the brokers said, well, you should look at this place.
This place is the South Boston waterfront, a neighborhood undergoing a major transformation into what Boston Mayor Menino hopes will be a mecca for tech companies. The promise of a Boston Innovation District helped lure mobile advertising firm JumpTap from Cambridge.
To me, it was an obvious choice for us because it had that sense of being on the edge of something.
JumpTap CEO George Bell says the company outgrew its offices in Kendall Square and that the new space on Seaport Boulevard is more versatile and more reasonably priced than comparable spaces in Cambridge. Still, Bell acknowledges there's a long way to go before the mayor's vision is fully realized.
Like many things, the marketing is ahead of the reality, and that's okay. I think they had to create that sound bite and the contained sense that there will be an innovation district of Boston. It's sort of like, build it and they will come.
And they have. Since 2010, 200 businesses have moved in, bringing some 4,000 jobs with them. And to help attract even more, Mayor Menino turned to the founder of the Cambridge Innovation Center, Tim Rowe.
We got a call from the mayor's office, and they said, we would like to create a civic innovation center. We couldn't say no to that.
That center, dubbed District Hall, is a public gathering space designed to foster innovation. But the building has no office space, and while companies like Bell's can afford the commercial rent in the area, many startups have been priced out of the neighborhood. And that isn't the only concern.
If things were to really heat up and you had a lot of people coming in and out at peak commuting times, it's going to be a lot of pressure on these roads.
In fact, traffic and parking seem to be the #1 concern for people like Charisse Frenny, who has worked in the area for 10 years.
The price of parking is probably going to go up if they have garages. Probably about $25 instead of $15. I mean, they used to be $7.
George Bell agrees there will be growing pains, but he sees the long-term potential for the area.
I think the development of both residential and commercial opportunities here will bring all the infrastructure. You can see it developing all around us now.
All right, and joining me now is Boston Innovation District Manager Nicole Fitzgerald and Greg Gomer, Managing Editor of the local online site Bostino, which covers innovation in Boston. Welcome. Well, Greg, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Can we afford two big innovation? We already have one in Cambridge. Can this area sustain two?
I mean, I absolutely think so, right? I mean, Cambridge and Kendall Square is bursting at its seams. So, the city definitely needs a place for local companies and startups to be able to grow, where there's a lot of long-term vision. I mean, Cambridge has been an incredible place for the past few years, but now we got to look to the future. And I think that's what the Innovation District is all about.
Why, first of all, District Hall, who came up with that name?
We had a naming competition for the building, and a lot of responses came in that were focused on the aspect of a community building, a building for lots and lots of different kinds of purposes. And one of the words that really rose to the top was the idea of a hall, an open gathering space that could be a marketplace and a civic space and a performance space. And District Hall is really, it's about a community, but it's really about a new kind of community, about the innovation community, community that's really centered around entrepreneurship and gathering and sharing ideas.
It looks very cool, but if there are no rental properties or units in that building, first of all, could you have made it so that there were, so you could really help out a startup that had like 1 or 2 people on staff and they could have rented it from something like $150 a month or something just to get going? Was that not possible?
Well, there's a lot of groups that are building spaces exactly like that. We have lots of co-working spaces and accelerator spaces, incubators for different types of companies that have different types of needs. District Hall really was intended to fill a different kind of need, which was a new kind of public infrastructure. So infrastructure for gathering and networking the innovation economy together. And it was very important that that building be a ground floor civic space, something that had a presence on the street, and was a really flexible space that small groups could come and do all kinds of different events there, do pop-up retail there, exhibitions, connect with other co-founders and mentors, and have a place to grab a sandwich or a beer and get together and talk about their businesses.
So is this completely different from Cambridge? Is it a different type of tech? Is it completely different kind of startup, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Well, Cambridge is, there's a lot of bioscience and very, very high-tech and old-school companies. The Innovation District tends to be a lot of newer companies, a lot of startups. But recently it's starting to attract a lot of the companies, like mentioned in the segment, from Cambridge or from, outside of Boston, Route 128. I really think it's really towards the future. Cambridge was almost, I might get in trouble for saying this, a thing of the past, where there's, a lot of companies, it kind of had its heyday. Now we're looking for the Innovation District, startups focusing on digital, mobile, and what this city really needs to become.
I just want to follow up on Greg there. We work with Cambridge very closely, and Tim Rowe was on your segment here today. It's really a pleasure to work with them, and I think the success of Kendall Square is good for the Innovation District, and the success of the Innovation District is good for Kendall Square, because that means we're really growing an ecosystem in Boston and in Greater Boston that's supportive and that's generative of entrepreneurship, and that's really going to push Boston's economy forward.
What I hear from what we found, though, that people are really concerned about the rents, really concerned about the parking, which I find just astounding, because that used to be the area they just went and dumped your car, right? Everybody is. It still is a fairly large parking lot, but there's so much open space still. So it seems to me hard to believe that the rents are that high.
Well, there is a lot of open space. I mean, that's why we have such an opportunity on the waterfront, is because we have 1,000 acres of land that still has 20 million square feet left to build out. It means that we're positioned exceedingly well to do something that's going to push Boston forward. And parking is part of that equation, but there's so much else to think about in that equation. And there's new kinds of transit as well that, like the Hubway bike share program in Boston. We have the Silver Line Transit that, connects Boston with the Red Line and out to the airport, so our companies are able to get to the rest of the world and beyond. So it's really about looking at an entire ecosystem that can be supportive, and the fact that we have an opportunity to do something so new.
The transit thing is big, though, because, Greg, I always joke with the mayor, I say, when you go to the waterfront, you got to drive. How else are you going to really get there?
It is hard. I mean, and we were located, we had an office in the Innovation District, and we had employees, driving or walking, and on those snowy days, I mean, it's windy. It gets tough out there. But back to the rent thing, I mean, that was one of the reasons why we actually moved out of the Innovation District last year, in the spring of last year, because we were actually looking for space to grow, but being a startup company, it's really all about the bottom line. And even though we wanted to be there, we couldn't afford it. Well, fast forward a year later, now we're looking to come back because, our company has done well and we're able to afford the elevated rent prices. And I do think, a lot of the reason why it is expensive is because there's a lot of potential. Do I think the space right now is worth the square footage for the office? No. Will it be with the retail, the restaurants, the housing in 5 to 10 years? Absolutely. But we're starting to see those elevated rent prices immediately, which is pushing some of the really small startups out, but it's allowing, a lot of the other companies, to move in from Cambridge and the 128 area.
Well, with that, though, we're working very hard on making sure that there's space for small startups in the Innovation District, and part of that is really supporting shared spaces, supporting co-working spaces that can mediate those rent transitions, and building innovation spaces, innovation housing into our more traditional development projects, so that we're finding creative ways of meeting that challenge.
All right, it's great down there. The Seaport District is really coming along. All right. Nicole Fitzgerald and Greg Gomer, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, that is it for Greater Boston. I'm Emily Rooney. Thanks for watching.